Hello, BookTube. Well, emboldened by the last few successful outings, we are going to try another mail haul. It's a beautiful spring day. Slight bit of low-lying scud, probably an indication of cloudy weather to come. The forecast a few days ago was for 4 or 5 days of rain. That is going to steadily dwindle to 4 or 5 drops of rain. I feel certain that by this time tomorrow, that will be the forecast. 4 or 5 drops of rain on one day. But nevertheless, my schedule is clouding up with other things, so I might not be able to make 5 videos today. I want to point out very gently to my Donoghue that no other channel on this platform gives you 5 videos a day. Okay, 5 videos a month is far more typical. I'm just saying. Let's look at the mail and see what we have here. First one is kind of light. It's kind of a lightweight thing. Let's put that aside and see what that is. What have we got here? Oh, good. Oh, great. Okay, I requested this. I was contacted. I requested this. So this is coming out in June, and I love this kind of a book. This is by Cody Cassidy, and it's called How to Survive History. This is from Penguin. How to outrun a Tyrannosaurus. Spoiler, you can't. They aren't slow. How to escape Pompeii. I assume this means the eruption of Vesuvius, and what that means is the short answer. Again, I'm going to want to hear what this author has to say, but the short answer to how to escape the eruption of Vesuvius in the famous eruption at Pompeii is to feel extra tremors early that morning of that day and immediately head in the right direction. And that means guessing what the right direction is. Plenty of people fled from Pompeii when it was too late, heading in the wrong direction. So that's how you would do it. It would be pure chance, but also a preternatural awareness. It wouldn't just be that you have to go to work that day and maybe you're an assistant baker at one of the bakeries on one of the main thoroughfares, and your boss is absolutely not going to give you the day off for any reason, and you barely have any money. You barely have anything that we would consider savings. Suppose that early that morning, in those circumstances, you feel a tremor. There were plenty of them, lots and lots more than usual. And you think, oh, this is serious. This is really serious. And I'm guessing, I don't have any reason to think this, given what I know about the world, but I'm guessing that the problem is the mountain that I can see out my bedroom window. So instead of going to work, I'm going to gather a few belongings and whatever money I have and hit the road headed in the opposite direction from the mountain. If you had thought that at 8 a.m. on that morning, it's possible that you would have survived. But anyway, how to get off the Titanic. Well, there was no getting off the Titanic until after the accident, until after the collision with the iceberg. So then it's just a question, again, of being in the right place at the right time. Plenty lifeboats had plenty of room on them. It would help if you were, the age and the demographic that was being looked for by the men who were guarding the boats. But plenty of people got on that weren't those demographics. So, including famously the director of the White Star Line. So you could have done it, but you would have had to have been in the right place at exactly the right time. If you'd been a poor working class Irish sod down in steerage, you'd been plumb out of luck. And how to survive the rest of history's deadliest catastrophes. Okay, so what have we gotten here? History is the most dangerous place on Earth. From dinosaurs the size of locomotives to meteors big enough to sterilize the planet, from famines to pandemics, from tornadoes to the Chicxulub asteroid, which is the kind of planet sterilizing event that is being talked about here. The odds of human survival are slim, but not zero. At least, not if you know where to go and what to do. In each chapter of this book, the author explores how to survive some of history's greatest threats, including getting eaten by dinosaurs. Well, if you were deposited on the ground in the Triassic, just as you are now, without a semi-automatic rifle, you would get eaten by dinosaurs. There wouldn't be any way. You could run from a T-Rex. You couldn't outrun a T-Rex. There are precious few dinosaurs that you could outrun. But you could run from them. If you had a sufficient head start, you might be able to get to some sort of terrain that they don't like. Although what terrain Tyrannosaurus rexes don't like, I don't know. But that terrain would also be swarming with dinosaurs that could kill you easily. So, as a single human, in the Triassic, you are completely defenseless. Single humans are completely defenseless in the wild, so you couldn't be. But what's the next one? Being destroyed by the asteroid that wiped out the dinosaurs. Well, our common ancestors weren't destroyed by that asteroid, but it was only because they could hide. They could weather the catastrophe that came. It wasn't the impact, of course. It was the nuclear winter that followed the impact for years. They had, first of all, burrows underground. Almost certainly, they had burrows underground, which meant that they had places where they almost certainly could store food. Uh, and they were very much endothermic. They were very much warm-blooded, probably to a much greater extent than most dinosaurs. So when the skies clouded over and there was no more food, those common ancestors of ours, those shrew-like common ancestors of ours, could survive. But that's the only way. There isn't anywhere on Earth you could have gone where you would have been safe. What else here? Succumbing to the lava flows that destroyed Pompeii. Well, unless you're Galadriel from the Rings of Power, who stands directly in the path of a pyroclastic flow and is not harmed, nor singed, nor inconvenienced in any way, unless you're from Krypton, you can't survive a lava flow, and you also can't outrun one. You also can't, no offense to Nicolas Cage, you can't outdrive one either. They move at hundreds of miles an hour. So you basically, the only way that you can do that is to not be there. Anyway, falling prey to the Black Death? Well, keep in mind, a third of Europe was completely exposed to the Black Death and did live. That's just the way of viruses. Even out of control viruses like the bubonic plague is the two versions of it. There are going to be people who have natural immunity. There were doctors who contracted the Black Death at the time when it was raging at the peak in Europe, developed the symptoms, and lived. That was possible, but other than that, the only way would not to be there. The only way you could survive other than that, if you didn't have that natural immunity, the only way you would survive is to not be there. Is to be somewhere else, which was the whole approach the rulers took. They made sure to take off for the countryside. What else here? Being devoured by the Donner Party. Oh, that's not fair. The Donner Party weren't flesh-eating zombies. They weren't monsters. They were driven to the utmost extremity by circumstances. They didn't want to do what they did. Oh, that's not fair at all. And again, I would point out that there were people in the Donner Party who weren't eaten, of course. The Donner Party here is referring, those of you maybe not up on your history, to a rather infamous prospecting, pioneering group of families called the Donner Party because they were led by the Donner family. That were trapped in unprecedented snows with no guides. Their Native American guides saw how bad things were turning and simply left. They knew where they were going, but the Donners didn't. The party didn't know. And eventually their supplies ran down and down and down, and finally they resorted to cannibalism. And how to survive being devoured by the Donner Party? It makes it sound like The Walking Dead. And then the last one, drowning during the sinking of the Titanic. Okay, so that's a little more specific. But even that, I know that you're probably familiar with the survival scene from the movie Titanic, where Jack and Rose steadily make their way to the stern of the ship because it'll be the last thing up, and then they could just go into the water. That's actually not a good strategy. If you were clinging to the stern of the Titanic when it went down, you would be sucked under. That's just the way hydraulics work. You'd be sucked, and by sucked under, I mean not what happens to Jack in the movie. You'd be sucked a quarter of a mile under. You would die before you could reach the surface. Probably the suction alone would kill you. And that would be the place where you would be most guaranteed to have it happen. The best way to do it if you were going to go into the water, and if you're going into the water, you're going to die of hypothermia anyway. But let's say you have Hollywood plot armor, then the best thing to do would have been to get into the water at a fairly low angle so the impact doesn't daze you, relatively near amidships. So, in other words, David Warner's character in the movie Titanic, who's right there when the ship splits. He's right at the crack when the ship splits. That would have been a pretty good place to do it. But anyway, using hindsight and modern science to estimate everything from how fast you'd need to run to outpace a T-Rex, you couldn't do it. You couldn't do it. No one could do it. Not the fastest human who's ever lived could do it. to the advantages of different body types in surviving the Donner Party tragedy. Oh, that's not fair at all. The Donners were victims. They weren't monsters. And they also weren't, poking each other to see who has the highest body fat. That's not fair at all. Cassidy gives you a detailed battle plan for survival, helping you learn about the era at the same time. History may be the most dangerous place on Earth, but that doesn't mean you can't visit. You can and you should. Okay. Well, this is going to be a lot of fun. This comes out in mid-June. That's still a ways away, but you should definitely put this on your Amazon list because this is going to be a lot of fun. All right, so we're off to a fine start. There was nothing to object to there except for all the objections that I did, in fact, raise. Let's see what this next one is and just hope for the best. This is also fairly small, which gives me forebodings that it might be a slim volume of poetry. Because the other candidate would be book catalogs, and I don't get those in the mail anymore. I don't think publishers send them out anymore. You just get them electronically. And so much the better. I'm not objecting to that at all. That is such a better idea. Maybe not electronic books, because, if you're I'm a book section editor in addition to a book reviewer, and you can't give a reviewer a digital copy. That just feels so skanky. Better by far to give them a book, especially if you can't pay them in actual money. But an electronic catalog? Oh, there's no reason to go to the bother of printing those things up. None at all. Every editor in the world is online. Every editor in the world can open a PDF form and read through it. So, oh no, it's a slim volume of poetry. And it's one we've seen before. So this is a finished copy of something that comes out in early May. This is What You Want by Maureen McLean. Tiny little thing here. Bet it won't have a tiny little price. Yeah, it's almost $30. This is almost $30. This is $27. Taking its title from the author's version of Sappho 58, this book is something of an open question, moving through the collective and the personal. See, I never know what publicists who are stuck with the job of writing the publicity sheets for modern poetry, what are they supposed to say? What kind of stuff are they supposed to say? Moving through the collective and the personal, what does that mean? That doesn't mean anything. This collection, which spans the shore to the heartland, from America to Europe and back again, documents those jagged edges that can't be smoothed. It's attuned to our present crisis while still continuing conversation with poets past, from old ballads of the sea to Frederick Seidel. Oh my God, Frederick Seidel would not be like being called a poet of the past. Here are poetic reflections on the work of philosophy and environmental thinkers, of capacious meteorology, and the study of inner and outer storms. Maybe some tips on how to survive them to go along with the previous book. How do you survive those inner and outer storms? And then the last book here, which we're doing fairly well for mail house. I'm not needing to delete videos, which is really nice. Oh, great. All right. Oh, this is another request of mine. I also requested this. So maybe that will help us here. Let's see here. This comes out on the 1st of August. This will be a hardcover for $28. And this is Speech Team by Tim Murphy. The very Breakfast Club type cover there. As we look ahead to warmer days and summer reading, I wanted to make sure this book is on your radar. Book publicists lately have started talking like they were decoders from World War II. They want to make sure that everything is on your radar. Not that you know about it, but that it's on your radar. In this poignant, acerbic... Breakfast Club meets the Big Chill Tale. A group of middle-aged Gen Xers are drawn back together when one of their former classmates commits suicide. As news of the tragedy spreads, attention turns to his Facebook farewell, where he cited a cruel comment made by his high school speech team coach, something he never forgot. Turns out he's not the only one. When the Mendham High speech team reunites, they realize they all have a similar story. Mr. Gold, who I presume is that ominous outline there, said something cutting to each of them, a memory they've been carrying around for years, and a collection of wounds that demand a reckoning. A middle-aged adult kills himself because he just can't live with an acerbic comment made by his speech team coach when he was in high school. And I know that this book is not going to pitch that as comedy. But that is funny. that is 21st century self-pity raised to absolutely comic extents. So let's see what we have here. I'm sure that the cast will be diverse. When this crew of former misfits, failed writer and recovering alcoholic Tip, struggling hippie farmer Natalie, imperious fashion designer Anthony, and tightly wound Professor Jennifer, discover that Gary Gold is still alive, seemingly enjoying a blissful retirement in Florida, there's only one thing to do: confront him. Rather than grow up. Yeah, definitely confront him. And you know that in 21st century parlance, what that means is kill him. What follows is a witty and propulsive tale about how we grow up and who we become. Well, these people didn't. If they're obsessing about an offhand wisecrack that a speech coach made in high school, they didn't grow up. And what happens when something sends us sliding back to those insecure teenage years with deft humor and tenderness, except for Mr. Gold. We won't be tender to him, who I'm sure does not remember any of the comments that he made. Instead, it would be okay if you throw a brick through his window, or maybe kill him. I mean, really. Read the room. The author approaches a contemporary problem that feels universal. How do we, or don't we, get past the internalized messages of our youth? I'm assuming that the author is very young. I don't know that, and I doubt that I can risk reading Tim Murphy's author bio, but I assume he's very young. That is an absurd question for anyone else. Let's see here. And what if we had the chance to face up to those who wronged us? OMG. An offhand acerbic comment by a probably closeted speech coach in high school is not a wrong with a capital W. That is not someone wronging you. Good Lord. Good Lord. All right. Well, Snowflake Team comes out on the 1st of August. Dare I look at the author's biography? I'm not sure that I want to. Okay, he's written a couple of books, and he's been a journalist for the past 25 years, so he's not young. And he wrote Christadora. I don't know how many of you remember that from 2017. I remember that. That got some talk. Okay, great. Fantastic. Speech Team. Well, the cover is very much meant to be reminiscent of the Breakfast Club, but you've got the big cello element there too, because these are older characters who are remembering what it was like in high school with this mean speech coach. So there you go. We got through a mail haul. It's not enough to hold me for 2 hours. This is 2 hours of reading. But I won't be doing it right away because one is June and one is August. The only one that's contemporary, or relatively so, is the Slim Volume of Poetry, which wouldn't take long to do. Not all that heavily motivated to do it, but it wouldn't take that long to do. So there you go. A nice, peaceful mail haul. We almost verged into trouble, but no. Self-control and a little good luck at the roll of the dice is bringing back mail hauls on this channel, which is great. So I'll quit while I'm ahead, and I will wrap this up, but I will see you soon. Thank you, BookTube.